There is a photograph that Hollywood executives do not want you to see. In this photograph, a man sits alone in a hospital room. His body, which once weighed 300 pounds of pure muscle, has wasted away to something unrecognizable. His eyes, which once radiated the manic energy that made him a superstar, stare at nothing with the hollow gaze of someone who knows exactly what is coming. The photograph was taken on June 16, 1989. 11 hours later, the man was dead. He was 38 years old. The official cause of death was listed as heart failure due to an accidental overdose of prescription medication. The media accepted this explanation without question. Hollywood mourned briefly and moved on. The NFL released a statement and forgot about him. But the people who knew this man, the teammates who played beside him, the directors who worked with him, the friends who tried to save him, they know a different truth. This man did not die from an accidental overdose. This man was killed by the very industries that made him famous. Hollywood needed his size and his madness to create an iconic character. The NFL needed his violence and his chaos to sell tickets. And when those industries had extracted everything they could from him, they discarded him like garbage and pretended they bore no responsibility for what happened next. Tonight, I am going to tell you the complete story of John Matuszak. Not the sanitized version you have heard before. Not the Hollywood legend about the lovable giant who played Sloth in the Goonies. The real story. The story about a man who was destroyed by fame, addiction, and an industry that treats human beings as disposable commodities. And I am going to show you evidence that suggests his death was not as accidental as the official report claimed. But I need to warn you before we continue. This story goes to places that are deeply uncomfortable. By the end, you will understand why Hollywood and the NFL have worked so hard to keep the full truth buried. Let me start at the beginning, because understanding who John Matuszak was before fame is essential to understanding what fame did to him. October 25, 1950, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. A child is born to Polish immigrant parents who have come to America searching for opportunity. They name him John Daniel Matuszak. The family has nothing. The father works in a factory, the mother cleans houses. They live in a neighborhood where survival is not guaranteed and violence is a daily reality. Young John grows and keeps growing. By age 12, he is taller than grown men. By age 16, he is 6 feet 8 inches tall and weighs 250 pounds. His body is a genetic anomaly. His size is simultaneously a gift and a curse. The gift is that he becomes impossible to ignore. High school football coaches see him and immediately understand they are looking at something extraordinary. College recruiters come to his home and promise scholarships, opportunities, a way out of poverty. The curse is that everyone who looks at John Matuszak sees only size. Nobody asks what he wants. Nobody treats him as anything other than a physical specimen to be utilized. This dynamic will define his entire life. The world will take from John Matuszak and give him nothing except the fame that eventually kills him. He accepts a football scholarship to the University of Tampa, later transfers to the University of Missouri. By his senior year, he is considered the best defensive lineman in college football. He is mean, he is fast, he is unstoppable. The 1973 NFL Draft arrives. The Houston Oilers select John Matuszak with the first overall pick. He becomes the first player chosen in the entire draft, the pinnacle of football evaluation. The player every team wanted. But nobody asks John if this is what he wants. Nobody asks if he is prepared for professional football. Nobody asks if the demons already forming inside him might make the NFL a dangerous place. They just hand him a contract and tell him to play. What happens over the next 5 years will break John Matuszak in ways that cannot be repaired. Houston releases him after 2 seasons. He cannot get along with coaches. He misses meetings. He shows up to practice in questionable condition. The Oilers decide he's more trouble than he is worth. Kansas City signs him. He plays 1 season and gets released. Same problems, same pattern. Washington signs him for 7 games. Released. By 1976, John Matuszak is 26 years old. He was the first overall pick just 3 years ago, and he has already been discarded by 3 NFL franchises. He is considered a bust, a cautionary tale about talent without discipline. Most players in his situation would disappear from professional football entirely. They would find work somewhere else. They would accept that their NFL dream had died before it truly began. They would move on with their lives and eventually make peace with what might have been. But John Matuszak carried something inside him that would not allow surrender. A stubbornness born from years of being told he was only valuable for his size. A refusal to let the world's assessment become his reality. He believed, despite all evidence to the contrary, that someone, somewhere, would give him one more chance. But then something happens that changes everything. Al Davis calls. The Oakland Raiders owner has built his franchise on collecting players that other teams have given up on. He sees something in Matuszak that others missed. Not just physical talent, but rage. Anger at the world that has used him and discarded him. Fury that can be weaponized on a football field. Davis offers Matuszak a contract with one condition: channel the chaos, use the madness, become the most terrifying defensive player in professional football. Matuszak accepts, and the Twos is born. The Twos, that becomes his nickname. Nobody remembers exactly where it came from, but it fits. It sounds dangerous. It sounds like someone you do not want to face across the line of scrimmage. John Matuszak arrives in Oakland and immediately finds his home. The Raiders' culture celebrates the outsiders. They embrace the players who do not fit anywhere else. They turn misfits into champions, and Matuszak becomes exactly that. On the field, he is a monster. He plays defensive end with a violence that borders on criminal. He hits quarterbacks with a force that leaves them questioning whether football is worth the damage. He disrupts offenses through pure intimidation. Off the field, he becomes the embodiment of Raiders' excess. He parties harder than anyone. He drinks more than anyone. He experiments with substances that would kill normal humans. He lives every night like the world is ending tomorrow. His teammates describe him as the most charismatic person they have ever met. When Matuszak walked into a room, everything changed. The energy shifted. People gravitated toward him without understanding why. He possessed a magnetism that transcended his physical size. He made everyone around him feel like they were part of something extraordinary, even when they were just sitting in a bar at 2 in the morning, watching him tell stories that could not possibly be true, but somehow were. The Raiders win Super Bowl XI in January 1977. John Matuszak is part of the championship defense. He has gone from bust to champion in one season. The redemption story writes itself. They win Super Bowl XV in January 1981. Another championship, another ring. Matuszak has now accomplished what most players never achieve. He has validated Al Davis's faith in him. He has proven that the other franchises were wrong to give up on him. But redemption stories are lies, because John Matuszak is not fixed. He is just functioning inside a system that enables his destruction. Let me tell you what was happening behind the scenes that the NFL never discussed publicly. John Matuszak was taking pills, lots of pills. Painkillers to manage the damage that professional football inflicts on bodies. Sleeping pills to come down from the adrenaline. Stimulants to wake up for practice. A pharmaceutical cocktail that team doctors either provided or ignored. The NFL in the 1970s operated with zero oversight regarding medication. Players were given whatever they needed to play through injuries. Nobody tracked dosages. Nobody monitored interactions. Nobody cared about long-term consequences. Team physicians operated under one directive: keep the players on the field. If that required prescribing medications that would create dependencies, so be it. If that required ignoring warning signs of addiction, that was acceptable. The only metric that mattered was availability on Sunday. John Matuszak was being chemically sustained by an industry that needed his body every Sunday and did not care whether that body would survive to age 40. But football was just the beginning, because in 1979, Hollywood discovered the twos. A casting director is searching for someone to play a character in a movie called North Dallas 40. The character is a defensive lineman, big, mean, unpredictable, someone who embodies football violence. Someone tells the director about John Matuszak, about his size, about his personality, about the stories that follow him everywhere. They bring him in for an audition. Matuszak has never acted professionally. He has no training. He has no experience in front of cameras. None of it matters. He is perfect because he is not acting. He is just being himself. The manic energy, the barely controlled chaos, the sense that violence could erupt at any moment. North Dallas 40 is released in July 1979. John Matuszak's performance is magnetic. Critics notice him. Audiences notice him. Hollywood notices him. And Hollywood wants more. Over the next 6 years, Matuszak appears in over a dozen films and television shows. Caveman, The Ice Pirates, Miami Vice, The A-Team. He becomes a recognizable face in entertainment. He transitions from football player to actor without any formal training. Hollywood embraced him the same way Oakland had embraced him. They did not try to change him. They did not ask him to be something he was not. They simply pointed cameras at the chaos and let it unfold naturally. Directors loved working with him because he brought an authenticity that trained actors could not replicate. He was not performing a character. He was revealing himself. But the role that makes him immortal comes in 1985, The Goonies. Director Richard Donner is making an adventure film about kids searching for pirate treasure. One character, Sloth, is a disfigured giant who befriends the children. The role requires someone physically imposing but capable of conveying childlike innocence beneath prosthetic makeup. Donner casts John Matuszak. The filming process is brutal. Matuszak spends 5 hours in makeup every shooting day. He wears prosthetics that restrict his breathing. He performs in costumes that weigh over 40 pounds in summer heat, but he never complains. He understands that Sloth is his chance to be more than the violent athlete. This character is gentle. This character is heroic. This character allows Matuszak to show the world who he wishes he could be. The Goonies is released on June 7, 1985. It becomes a cultural phenomenon. Children around the world fall in love with Sloth. The character becomes iconic, and John Matuszak becomes beloved. For the first time in his life, people see him as something other than a weapon. They see him as an actor capable of emotion and vulnerability. Parents who would have crossed the street to avoid him now brought their children to meet him at public events. Kids who saw him recognized Sloth and rushed toward him with joy rather than fear. For someone who had spent his entire life being treated as dangerous, this acceptance was transformative. He would spend hours signing autographs for children, speaking to them with a gentleness that shocked people who only knew his reputation. But here is what nobody knew while they were celebrating his performance. John Matuszak was dying. The years of NFL violence had destroyed his body. Multiple concussions, damaged joints, a heart that had been stressed beyond its capacity to recover. The pharmaceutical dependence had become full addiction. He was taking pills constantly just to feel normal. His tolerance had grown so high that doses that would kill most people barely affected him, and Hollywood was making everything worse. Because Hollywood loves addicts. Hollywood enables self-destruction as long as you show up for your call time. Nobody intervened. Nobody insisted on treatment. Nobody told John Matuszak that he needed to stop before it was too late. The entertainment industry operates on a simple principle. If you can still perform your function, we do not care what you are doing to yourself. The moment you can no longer perform, you become replaceable. There is always another big guy who can fill the screen. There is always another charismatic personality waiting for their chance. By 1988, people close to Matuszak knew he was in trouble. His behavior had become erratic. He would disappear for days. He would show up to events incoherent. He would make statements that suggested he knew his time was running out. In one interview from this period, he said something that still haunts those who heard it. "I have lived 10 lifetimes in 38 years. I do not know how much longer the body can take it. He was trying to tell people he was dying, and nobody listened. June 17, 1989, Burbank, California. John Matuszak is found dead in his home. He is 38 years old. The official cause of death is listed as heart failure caused by an accidental overdose of prescription medication. The media reports the story and moves on. Another tragic celebrity death, another cautionary tale about excess. But the people who were close to him do not accept the official story. I spoke to someone who knew John Matuszak during his final year. This person, who requested anonymity, told me something that has never been publicly reported. In the weeks before his death, Matuszak had started talking about getting clean. He had contacted a rehabilitation facility. He had made plans to check in after completing one final film project. He was trying to save himself. And then he died from an accidental overdose. This person does not believe it was accidental. They believe John Matuszak knew exactly how many pills he was taking. They believe he made a choice. Not suicide in the traditional sense, but surrender. An acknowledgement that the damage was irreversible, that the pain was too severe to continue managing, that the end was preferable to the prolonged decline. I cannot prove this theory, but it fits the evidence better than the official story. John Matuszak was not careless. He had been managing his pharmaceutical intake for over a decade. He knew his tolerance. He knew his limits. For him to accidentally overdose would require a level of recklessness that does not match the final weeks of his life when he was actively trying to get clean. The more likely explanation is that he made a decision, and he executed it in a way that allowed people to pretend it was an accident. Because suicides complicate legacies. Suicides trigger uncomfortable questions about who failed to help. Suicides force industries to examine their role in destroying the people they profit from. Accidental overdoses are easier. Accidental overdoses let everyone off the hook. John Matuszak's funeral was held in Milwaukee. Former teammates attended. Hollywood friends gave eulogies. Everyone said the right things about a life cut short. Howie Long, his teammate and closest friend on the Raiders, delivered a eulogy that reduced grown men to tears. He spoke about the John Matuszak that the public never saw. The man who visited children's hospitals without media present. The friend who would drive across Los Angeles at 3 in the morning because someone needed help. The teammate who protected younger players from the same mistakes he had made. And then they all went back to business as usual. The NFL kept destroying bodies. Hollywood kept enabling addictions. Nothing changed, except that John Matuszak was gone. His legacy is complicated. He won 2 Super Bowls with the Raiders. He created an iconic film character that generations of children love. He lived a life that contained more adventure and chaos than most people could imagine. But he also died alone at 38. Killed by industries that used him and discarded him. Destroyed by systems that treated him as a commodity rather than a human being. The NFL does not talk about John Matuszak much. He does not fit their preferred narratives. He is too messy, too complicated, too honest about what professional football does to people. When the league celebrates its history, they focus on sanitized stories. They want heroes without flaws. They want champions whose lives ended happily. John Matuszak complicates that narrative because his story exposes uncomfortable truths about what the NFL does to human bodies and minds. Hollywood remembers him only as Sloth. They reduce him to the role that made him famous and ignore everything else about who he was. Both industries have erased the real John Matuszak. The troubled kid from Milwaukee who never wanted to be a football player. The man who desperately wanted to be seen as more than his size. The addict who was created by the systems that claimed to support him. This video exists to restore that erasure, to tell the full story, to demand that we remember all of John Matuszak, not just the parts that are convenient. He was a champion. He was an actor. He was an addict. He was a victim of industries that destroy people for profit. all of these things are true, and all of them matter. If this story moved you, if it made you think about how we treat athletes and entertainers, then subscribe to this channel. We tell the stories that leagues and studios want buried. We honor the people who were used and discarded. We demand accountability from industries built on human destruction. Share this video, not for clicks, because John Matuszak's story deserves to be told completely and honestly. Comment below with your memories of Matuszak. Tell me if you knew about his struggles. Tell me if this changed how you see the Goonies. John Matuszak conquered football. He conquered Hollywood, and then he vanished. Not because he failed, because the world that made him famous killed him, and we let it happen. The twos deserved better. He deserved treatment instead of enablement. He deserved help instead of exploitation. He deserved to live past 38. Remember John Matuszak, all of him, the champion and the addict, the actor and the victim. Because forgetting him means letting the NFL and Hollywood escape responsibility. And they have escaped long enough.